Now let me talk about another area of India's foreign policy. Maybe a new chapter we can say, a different chapter, where I would like to talk about non-alignment as a foreign policy principle and the concept of non-aligned movement. And what is the basic philosophy of non-alignment? Okay, so let me talk about the basic philosophy of non-alignment. How? What is the purpose and how is it? And I would like to move into that non-aligned movement also. So, in fact, the relevance of, in a couple of years before, I think 2018, there was an essay question on the relevance of non-alignment today, non-alignment movement, NAM, an essay question. So, this is a very important, because it is quite dear to India. Prime Minister Nehru took so much of pain, and along with the rest of the world leaders, his friends, we created an organization called Non-Aligned Movement. But of course, now the situation has changed. After the collapse of the Soviet Union, the end of the bipolar world, more of a unipolar world right now, or rather the non-polar, the US, and now we are moving closer to US in any case. So naturally the relevance of NAM as a foreign policy principle is in, there is a lot of question mark over it. So I would like to discuss about those. That is why I am keeping this as a separate chapter. Non-alignment as a foreign policy principle is a totally different chapter, a separate chapter. And in that I would like to talk about that basic philosophy of non-alignment. Okay, so I will be talking about the basic philosophy. Now, non-aligned movement, NAM, non-aligned movement is an international organization, and it was created in 1961 after the conference in Belgrade in the then Yugoslavia. Yugoslavia as a country is not there today. It was part of, or Belgrade was the capital of Yugoslavia. Marshal Tito, friend of Nehru, he was in the forefront. The first non-aligned movement conference was held in 1961 at Belgrade. In fact, today non-aligned movement has more than 120 countries. 120 countries as members. It is the largest organization after UN. More than 2/3 of the members, or more than 2/3 of the population of the world are members of the non-aligned movement. And in fact, this was created immediately after the Second World War. Decolonization was going on, that philosophy, how it has emerged, that's what I am talking right now. The decolonization process was going on. The Cold War started. The Western powers under the NATO and the Soviet Union and the rest of the East European countries under Warsaw Pact. There is tremendous pressure on the newly formed countries to join either NATO or the Warsaw Pact. So there is tremendous pressure on the newly formed countries to join either NATO or Warsaw Pact. Either NATO or Warsaw Pact. But leaders like Nehru, they said that no, we would not like to join both of you because it is a trap. It is going to create a trap. So we will not align with both of you. We will not join both of you. We are against the bloc politics. Against the bloc politics. The Western bloc as well as the Eastern bloc, the socialist bloc politics. And we wanted to keep, our foreign policy independent. We wanted to deal with the world in our own way. So, non-alignment is not neutrality. Non-alignment, the philosophy of non-alignment is not about neutrality. It is not neutrality. Rather, it is independence in foreign policy. Independence in foreign policy. We want to have an independent policy regarding our relationship with the rest of the world. If you join any of these blocs, we are guided by the whims and fancies of the leaders of that bloc. If you join NATO, then we are guided by the interests of US and the Western powers. If you join Soviet Union's Warsaw Pact, then we are guided by their interest and philosophy. We cannot have an independence in foreign policy. So during the Cold War era, our leaders realized that we should not surrender our independence in foreign policy. We should not surrender our worldview. We should have our own worldview. We should deal, and in fact, it is not neutrality, independence in foreign policy, and we want active engagement. Please remember, non-alignment is not about neutrality and passive. It's not a passive policy. We would like to have active engagement with both the blocs. Active engagement with both the blocs. So we don't want to be passive, we want active engagement with both the blocs. And we would not, but at the same time we will not ally with either of the two. So in fact, this is a national, this is a philosophy of national self-determination. Non-alignment is a philosophy of national self-determination. We will decide what is good for us, national self-determination. We will decide what is good for us, and it is totally against all forms of imperialism and colonialism. National self-determination, and most importantly non-alignment as a philosophy, non-alignment as a philosophy is totally against all forms of colonialism and imperialism. We will not be subjugated to any pressure from outside. We will not be dancing to the tune of these big powers. We have our own view, we have a nationalistic perspective, we have a world view of our own, and we would like to maintain, and we would like to play, or we would like to live according to our world view, not according to the world view of these bloc powers. So we are totally, so it's a nationalistic perspective, self-determination. And this idea, but obviously, so this is very much effective and very useful. This philosophy is very effective during the Cold War era. It is a must, but definitely after the end of the Cold War and the collapse of the Soviet Union, today when there is bloc politics have vanished, when there is only one power, superpower, or only remnants of that, the relevance of non-alignment has also declined, or a non-aligned movement has declined. But non-alignment as a policy, that is about national self-determination, it is about independence in foreign policy, it is about anti-colonialism and anti-imperialism. So if you look at that, this philosophy is still very much relevant. All these are very much relevant. Our, we should have our own worldview, and the majority of the people in the world are living in the third world countries. Their perspective should be seen, and it should be taken seriously, and the big powers, the rich fellows, should not be dictating terms on this in a comparatively poorer brethren who are living in the developing world. So this idea of non-alignment does not signify that a state ought to remain passive. It is not a passive foreign policy. It's not neutrality, it is active engagement with all, actively participating in all international affairs. So this non-aligned movement, it stated its aim as to give a voice to the developing countries. So the movement wanted to give voice to the developing countries and encourage a concerted action in the world affairs. They encourage countries to come up with an action plan for dealing with the issues of the world. So the basic philosophy of non-alignment is not neutrality, it is active engagement, it is not a passive foreign policy, it is an active foreign policy. Actively we would like to deal and engage with both the power blocs and independence in foreign policy. So that is why the philosophy of non-alignment is still relevant even after the collapse of the Soviet Union and the end of the Cold War. And India should be proud of our leader, Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru, who initiated and who was a torch bearer of this independence in foreign policy, and we can be proud of his ideas and ideology and the vision for the world. And non-alignment is still relevant.